been going on lately. We have is 9/12. Yesterday was 9/11. 20 years ago, we had the attack on the towers. You know, I still remember stocking shelves when the first one hit and my phone going off. Then by the time the second one hit, I was trying to find out about friends who had family members that was working there. As I was getting off trying to make my way from Delaware to New York. None of those people in those buildings at war with anyone, so they thought. They were just doing their thing. They were going to work like any other day. But somebody was at war with them that they couldn't see. Over the years, the history gets turned. We start making excuses for people. We even start taking on blame ourselves. We were doing our thing. Before long, you'll even have all the memory of what happened. We'll never forget becomes a slogan that's quickly tossed to the side or printed on a shirt for more money. That's the way the world is. It is quickly fading away. Everything that we're going through right now, it seems so important what's happening right now with us. Like a life or death thing. But tomorrow, it's over. You leave the spot you're at, no matter what you're going through, and tomorrow it's a faded memory. And it's a whole nother situation, a whole nother thing. But we are constantly at war with something around us. We're constantly at war with the things inside of us. So why am I saying this? Well, one, because it was 9/11 yesterday. And two, is because I've been thinking about perception, the way we think about things. Which is the reason why for the last several messages, or many of them, I've been bringing out, trying to show that everyone in our scriptures was real people, going through real emotions, going through real trauma, real grief, real depression. They hurt just like us. They were hungry just like us. They were in bondage just like us. Say, I'm not in bondage. Well, actually, we were. We were in bondage to sin before we were set free by the ransom that Christ paid. He paid it for anyone that will accept him. He did not pay it for everyone. And that's according to the scriptures. He says he paid it for many. But he paid it for every single person that will accept him and accept the price he paid for them. I was talking to someone this past week, and we was talking about how things changes because people forgets the meaning. Like Hush Little Baby, we say that and we say, Hush Little Baby, don't you cry. You know, and then they started talking about buying stuff. Where back in the day, they even said, Hush Little Baby, don't you cry. You know, either one of your parents, mother or father, you know, depending on what version you go to, was born to die. Because they were trying to say, you know, this body is moral, is going to fade away. It's passing. Every year I look in the mirror, I see that more and more. Even though inside my mind thinks of me as someone young, my body feels like somebody that can't hardly move around. And I look in the mirror and I see someone reflecting back that's halfway in between both of it. Because they weren't made for this world, separated from the Creator. Every time you go away, you see somebody that's grown up, you're like, how did time go away so much? We were made for ever presence with the Creator. That's why. We were not made for an earth like this that is fading. Inside that same thought or that I was having with that friend or that person, we came up with this rhyme that kids usually sing. As they go around the circle, they sing, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes to ashes, we all fall down. How many of y'all heard that? How many of y'all know where it comes from? It actually comes from 1665, the Black Plague that was in London, and it actually goes, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, a tissue, we all fall down. A ring around the posy is actually talking about the rashes that would come up on anyone that was infected with the Black Death. A pocket full of posy was the flowers and the herbs that they would take in their pocket because they believed that demons that has foul smells and odors, and as they come and breathe on a person, they become infected. So therefore, they would put posies and flowers and stuff inside their pockets with sweet smells, trying to ward off demons. You ever wondering why some people put flowers in their pockets? And then a tissue, that's because sneezing was one of the symptoms that they had as it progressed. And then we all fall down. They were all dying with it. The Black Death. 1665. Funny how things get changed over the years. You know, there's a lot of things that we have in our society today that's changed over the years. The meaning for Easter, for Christmas. We have the Green Day. What was his name?
St. Patrick's Day.
There you go. Who wasn't even Catholic at the time of his life, but yet gave up his whole life to go over to Ireland and devoted his whole life to save a nation that was in a civil war with one another, with pagan gods, doing human sacrifices. Oh yeah, same nation that actually kidnapped him from his home, took him over and sold him in slavery, where if he was to try to run, he'd be killed. And he finally escaped. One night he heard a voice and was like, I can't do that, and God told him to go. So he left. It was a miraculous event, getting back home, and then he went to seminary, came back, and he changed the whole entire island. But yet, how many people knows that? How many people knows that it's actually a day to remember a saint? Because the Catholic Church saw how he was and what he did for humanity and declared him a saint. How many people knows that? Instead of just pinching somebody because they're not wearing green. Or Valentine's Day. Well, we're not going to go into that one. That gets a little deep. But there was like 3 different people that was priests that was martyred on that date, that same date throughout, not the same year, for their faith, actually. Makes you wonder what else we misinterpret. I want to read from Matthew. Some things in this is going to be a little touchy, but I'm going to try to leave off the touchy parts and get to the basis, because inside every religion, all the denominations, you have touchy parts that really does not matter. It only matters because we give it those parts to be touchy about. But chapter 16, Matthew chapter 16. So we're just go ahead and read 10 of these verses real quick. Start at 13. 16, 13. It says, "Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he began asking his disciples, saying, 'Who do people say that the Son of Man is?' And they said, 'Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, but still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets.' And he said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?' And Simon Peter answered and said, 'Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.' And Jesus answered and said to him, 'Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you shall loosen on earth shall be loosed in heaven.' Then he warned the disciples that they should tell no one that he was the Christ. From that time, Jesus Christ began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised on the third day. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, 'God forbid it, Lord. This shall never happen to you.' But he turned and said to Peter, 'Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. For you are setting your mind on God's interests.'" Nope, I misread that. "For you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but man's." All right. I believe that the meaning on a lot of this can escape us unless we dig into the setting, the history. What was the writer saying here? Who was he talking to? Matthew was talking to the Jews that would know this area. Mark, well, he was interpreter for Peter at Rome, and he was writing down what was being said. So it was to all. It was like historical markings. They would know this area. Luke was writing to the Gentiles. He was a physician for Paul. We don't know this area. So, little backdrop. He is just here with the disciples. If we go over to Luke, or Mark, we'll find this out in different forms, but it's just him and his disciples, and he chooses this setting to ask them this question. So at Caesarea Philippi. The original name for Caesarea was Benias, or another one would be Panis, P-A-N-I-S. Philippi changed it to Caesarea, and then he added his last name on there, because this right here was a place that had at least 14 ancient temples to Baal for the worship, scattered all in this area right here. And then, where you're standing at, wherever you're at, you're going to be able to see this monstrous white marble temple that Philippi made for the Godhead Caesar. And that's why he changed the name to Caesarea and tacked his part of his name on the end, Philippi. So you have all of these temples where all of this atmosphere has been for Greek gods, right? Not to mention, on that same hillside is a cavern that they believe was the birthplace of Pan, which is supposed to be the god of nature. And then out of that same cave is brought forth the spring that turned into the river of Jordan. See, this is what all this area is looking at. It's about 25 miles northeast of the Sea of Galilee. And here is a man, homeless, penniless, son of a carpenter, so a servant of people, depending on others. And he is standing in front of all of these miraculous buildings where people have came and died and sacrificed and everything else to all of these other gods. And he is saying, he picked that one setting to say, who do you say I am? See, it is a wonderful thing to be labeled like one of the prophets. But he was more than that. It was a wonderful thing to be honored as a teacher, a rabbi, someone that you would entrust your soul to. But he was more than just that. So then when Peter said, you are the Son of God, the Messiah. Messiah is the same as Christ. Then he said, you are Peter. Or the actual word would be Petros. Upon this rock, Petra, I'll build my church. Petra would be like the big rock compared to the small Petra, where Jesus is the cornerstone. And if you lay in a foundation, which is Christ, and it doesn't matter all the little other pebbles that you want to put on there. It's just you're building on it. You're putting on that foundation, not another one. So while I read this, I think about Christ being with us today, asking us straightforward, who do you say that I am? As he stands in between us with a backdrop of the world. Does he blend into the world? Or does he stand out to us? That's the question. As it became such a slogan, like we will remember, that people can go to a church on a Sunday as a ritual and say, I'm a Christian, and hang a necklace around their neck, trying to show the world, but yet go out there and are worse than the sinners right as soon as they step out of the church. We're all sinners, saved by only grace. If it was by any work that we have done, then we could boast in ourselves, but we cannot. We are all but filthy rags compared to him. That's the reason why we could not do it. That's the reason why we needed a Savior. So that's the reason why church should never be a building. The definition, the actual definition of that word church, every time it's used in the New Testament, is coming together for a common cause, whether it's political, whether it's for religion, or whatever it may be for a common cause. Like-minded people. So that means we're supposed to be meeting together in homes, on the street, beside the riverbank, with fishing poles in our hand, just talking about God. That's church. What that also means is it should engulf every bit of our life and not just part of one day of the week. That was never the case. Acts even tells us that, how they were meeting in the homes. They met in temples? Sure. They also met in homes. They met everywhere, breaking bread together. This is part of their life. Because if it is the foundation of what we stand on, then it should, in fact, be the guide for everything we do, everything we say, and the way we treat others, the way we act when nobody's around. It should be the foundation of our whole existence. But we forgot that. All the other stuff is window dressing. He goes on to tell Peter something. After he said, "You will not know this, but unless the Father told you." He says, "I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not overpower it." The Jewish faith was that after this life, everybody went to Hades and waited for that judgment. They all went there, and they'd be separated, just like the rich man and the beggar, Lazarus. When there was a gulf between them, Lazarus went to the bosom of Abraham. That's the kind of thoughts that they would have. But if you read over in Revelation, chapter 1, verse 18, it says that Jesus has the keys to the gates of hell, or the keys to Hades. And here it is, he's saying, "I give you the keys." Back during this time, you also have to wrap your mind around, this right here is the turn of the century back then. They didn't have everything like we have, but a kingdom, you usually have a steward, right? A steward that would hold the keys would go and open the door to allow people to come in the morning time. And they'd lock the door back up at night. Well, for him, it was to open the door up for people to start coming in. During that time, you'll find that the elders, the judges, the ones that looked at everything, they would be usually around the gates of any area, any town, any group. And they would conduct businesses such as judgings and courts and stuff like that. If you go back to Ruth, where the one that married her actually went whenever he wanted to confront the next of kin that was closer than he was. He waited at the gate. And then he pulled him aside and waited for the elders to come. He did everything at the gate. In the Old Testament, that was where God was telling them to punish the people. At the gate. At the doorway. Don't let this stuff come in. Go ahead and take care of your business at the gate. And let's get it done over with. And now let's come in and let's join together. So yes, at the day of Pentecost, Peter was the one that stood up and gave this message that brought thousands of people to Christ. He was the one that went to speak to Cornelius, and the whole family got baptized. And then he used that for later in Acts 15, I believe it was, to be a witness for Paul to go out and open the door for the Gentiles. So yes, he was the steward. Being bound and unbound, that is what they were called, the rabbis, saying that, yeah, this right here is according to the law that's been set before us. This right here is not. This right here we should leave out of the house of God. This right here we should continue doing. That's what, in essence, being bound and unbound is referencing. And the reason I'm bringing that out is because there's a lot of history right there I just told you that's been lost. And unless you know it, you cannot get the full meaning behind it. The last part, I read all the way down to 23. He's going to build his church with Peter. He could not know that he was the Son of God, especially in a place like that atmosphere. He was looking beyond this world. But yet, in 23, get behind me, Satan. He's saying this to Peter. Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. For you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but man's. First of all, I want to say that whenever he tells him, get behind me, this is different than whenever he told Satan to go away. Whenever Satan came and tempted him 3 times. But if you read in Luke, you'll find 4:13, I think it is. It says that the devil left him until an opportune time. When would be a more opportune time except whenever you're getting ready to face the cross? To try to say, oh, no, you don't have to do that. There's another way. Remember, we already covered how he went through depression, went through fear at Gethsemane, where he even asked the Father, take this cup away from me. I don't want to do this. But it's not my will, it's your will. I came to do this for them. If there's any other way, take it away from me, though. When would be another opportune time? Satan also means adversary. Just saying. And the reason why he's telling Peter to get behind me is don't get in front of me. Peter called him off to the side to try to tempt him, saying that you don't have to do this. And what he's basically saying to us is, in a nutshell, you can only know who he is and what he can do by the Father. Where the water is coming from the throne of God spiritually down onto us, preparing us to receive it. Once we receive him, it becomes our head. If we receive him, we are then to become a steward for him. Now that we know, because the question is asking us today, who do you say he is? Just like he asked Pontius Pilate. When Pontius Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Is this coming from you or someone else? He was asking him the same question, just in different words. Because if we see who he truly is, then our whole existence is going to be changed. So, once we see who he is, then what he's done for us, then we open the door for others to see. However, if we take that responsibility and we try to put our wants, we try to put what we would want ahead of him, even if we think it is a good thing, because Peter's thinking, oh, it is a bad thing for him to die. The Messiah is supposed to come and save us all. Supposed to put our enemies under our feet and crush them. So he's thinking that he's doing good. A lot of times, religious leaders are very zealous and overpowering, thinking they're doing good, when they're doing nothing more than crippling people because they're getting away from God's message. And that's what he's saying here. Do not tell people what they must do or have to do or can't do for him. Send them back to the Word of God. That's what he's saying. Get behind Christ, not in front of him. You are a stumbling block to me. For you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's. Just like the nursery rhymes that I spoke about. Both of them was about looking at death as a carefree thing. About looking at the things of this world. Oh yeah, it's just happy. We're just going to buy something more, make you happy. Oh, it's okay. You sin a little bit. Come on in. You're good. You're good. Yeah, God don't look at that. That was at night. Yeah, he can't see there and then. You have your fingers crossed? Oh, yeah, you're good. You're golden. Jesus did not walk around telling everybody they were good. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he call some of them a snake of vipers? Didn't he say the Pharisees was like tombs that everybody was walking on top of, because over there their tombs would be in the ground, and it's like a cave. You go in, you lay the body down, and with it wrapped up, and as it decompressed and the flesh fell off, you put the bones in a box and put the name on it, and you moved on down to different levels. But every single time you go in there, you become unclean, and you have to go and cleanse yourself, spiritual cleanse. So what he's talking about is everybody's walking around, they don't realize that you're already dead inside. He was harsh. But yet we go around saying, the Bible says don't judge. But that, though everyone that says that fails to go back to the meaning that says, don't judge lest you be judged in the same manner. In other words, you're going to judge people. You're going to have a judgment. You do it every single day. Look at what they're wearing. Should I wear this? What are they going to? You do it all the time. But what it's saying is, get that beam out of your own eye. Judge the same judgment on you that you're trying to inflict on others. Do it on you first. Make sure that you're not guilty of this. And make sure it's lining up with what he wants. Right here. That's what he's saying. Take it back to him. Because if we ever get before him and we start getting back into our own traditions, the way, oh, we're doing this because my pappy did it. And his pappy before him. That's why he came here in the first place, because the Jews had did that. And they kept adding to it. That's the reason why we're in a mess that we're in now. Because people has continued to do things traditionally instead of getting back to the source. And they became stumbling blocks. The church is not in a building, but it's in our workplace. It's in the one in the hole right beside us. It's in the one in the other room. Every time we come together, remember, he is there. We're either going to be in front of him and we'll become like the adversary, the devil, while looking like one of his, or become a descendant of his with the keys to the gates of heaven as we open the door for someone else. It's all about perception. Don't take anything like a grain of salt. Don't take anything that you hear when it comes to faith in your eternal soul like it doesn't matter. Because it does. We are not supposed to act like the world is not happening around us, but we are supposed to apply everything to the world around us. So the message from me today: continue to search. Continue to study the culture of those that was receiving these letters. The history. The meaning. Pray. Jesus wants us to know the truth. He wants us to study and meditate on his word. He does not want it to be something that just hangs on a wall or around our neck. He wants us to know it. That's the reason why we have the scriptures to study them. And it's the most precious thing on the face of this earth. Because in it is the keys to the gates of heaven. And it's there being offered to everyone, if we'll just accept it. If you look about, well, there's so many translations. I haven't been to school, hard to understand. Then pray. Find the translation that's best for you. 1 John 2:27 says, the anointed one that dwells within you will teach you all things. You need not that any man teach you. You know it's true. Because it comes from God. So therefore, pray, read, study, and pass it on through the actions that you take towards others every single day. At the end, that's what we're all here for. And keep the perception that's all on the foundation of Christ. Not us. Not anyone else, but Christ. May God bless.